Good morning. Good morning, church. My name's Jeff. I'm one of the pastors here. And before everybody asks me, I got a little hitch in my getup. I got a little limp. And I've already told like 15 people what happened. What happened was this. Wednesday night, I sat down on my couch. And that was it. I got up an hour later and I had a limp. I don't know what happened, but the guys in my men's group told me that I turned 50. And so that's just what happens now. So, with that out of the way, let's transition to a time of teaching. Let's turn to Joshua chapter 7. We're going to read the whole chapter. The whole chapter, because it is loaded with truth. It is also very disturbing. And so we're going to look at it, and we're going to do what we've been doing with Joshua this whole time, is we're kind of peeling back some of the layers, and we're really trying to endeavor to understand this text that is often avoided by modern Christians because of all of the disturbing things you find in there. But as we've been digging through it these last few weeks, it is loaded with key principles for Christian life, and today is no different. We're in Joshua chapter 7. I'm going to read the passage on which this teaching is based, whole thing. It's going to take a minute, but I'd invite you to follow along, and if you're so inclined, you can underline stuff that maybe you have questions about. We might answer them, okay? Joshua 7, verse 1. But the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took some of them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel. Now Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Bath, to the east of Bethel, and told them, go up and spy out the region. So the men went up and spied out Ai. When they returned to Joshua, they said, not all the army will have to go up against Ai. Send 2,000 or 3,000 men to take it, and do not weary the whole army, for only a few people live there. So about 3,000 went up, but they were routed by the men of Ai, who killed about 36 of them. They chased the Israelites from the city gate as far as the stone quarries and struck them down on the slopes. At this, the hearts of the people melted in fear and became like water. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there till evening. The elders of Israel did the same and sprinkled dust on their heads. And Joshua said, alas, sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay on the other side of the Jordan. Pardon your servant, Lord. What can I say now that Israel has been routed by its enemies? The Canaanites and the other people of the country will hear about this, and they will surround us and wipe out our name from the earth. What then will you do for your own great name? The Lord said to Joshua, stand up. What are you doing down on your face? Israel has sinned. They have violated my covenant, which I commanded them to keep. They have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen. They have lied. They have put them with their own possessions. That is why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. They turn their backs and run because they have not been made liable to destruction. I will not be with you anymore unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction. Go consecrate the people. Tell them, consecrate yourselves in preparation for tomorrow, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. There are devoted things among you, Israel. You cannot stand against your enemies until you remove them. In the morning, present yourselves, tribe by tribe. The tribe the Lord chooses shall come forward, clan by clan. The clan the Lord chooses shall come forward, family by family. And the family the Lord chooses shall come forward, man by man. Whoever is caught with the devoted things shall be destroyed by fire. Along with all that belongs to him, he has violated the covenant of the Lord and has done an outrageous thing in Israel. Early the next morning, Joshua had Israel come forward by tribes, and Judah was chosen. The clans of Judah came forward, and the Zerhites were chosen. He had the clan of the Zerhites come forward by family, and Zimri was chosen. Joshua had his family come forward, man by man, and Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah, was chosen. Then Joshua said to Achan, my son, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and honor him. Tell me what you have done. Do not hide it from me. Achan replied, it is true. I have sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. This is what I have done. When I saw in the plunder a beautiful robe from Babylonia, 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. They are hidden in the ground inside my tent, with the silver underneath. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and there it was, hidden in the tent with the silver underneath. They took the things from the tent, brought them to Joshua and all the Israelites, and spread them out before the Lord. Then Joshua, together with all Israel, took Achan, son of Zerah, the silver, the robe, the gold bar, his sons and daughters, his cattle, donkeys, and sheep, his tent, and all he had to the valley of Achor. Joshua said, "Why have you brought this trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you today." Then all Israel stoned him, and after they had stoned the rest, they burned them. Over Achan, they heaped up a large pile of rocks, which remains to this day. Then the Lord turned from his fierce anger. Therefore, that place has been called the Valley of Achor ever since. This is the word of the Lord. This is a disturbing passage on a number of levels. Would you agree? If I could summarize it briefly for us, if you remember from last week, God was delivering Jericho, really the first city that the Israelite conquest took over as they entered Canaan, the land God had promised them. And it looked a lot more like a worship service than a war. Do you remember? It looked much more like a liturgy than a traditional battle plan. They're going to march around the city and so forth. And God raised the city, and he said of the contents of the city, the valuables, you're not to profit from it at all. Do you remember? Because every other ancient Near Eastern culture, that's what you do. You're marauders. They behave like pirates. You go in, you conquer a place. This is why we go to war. Resources. You go in, you conquer people, you take the plunder. However, in this particular case, Israel was not to profit from it. They were to set aside the gold, the silver, the iron, the bronze, all the valuables for the Lord. They weren't supposed to profit materially from it. Charim, devoted things. Achan, we find out, takes some of the devoted things. It's like he just heard, don't take the devoted things. If you have kids, you understand. Like, don't do that. And then 5 seconds later. And that's exactly what he does. And so we find out here that Achan has taken some of the devoted things, and then God's anger burned against him. Okay? And then we find out that there's all kinds of collateral damage to this one particular person's sinfulness. There is the loss of life as a result of the failed battle at Ai. And then there's also his family and livestock, and this incredible penalty that seems disturbing because you're punishing this man's children for something they didn't do. Now, there are two terms that are buried in this story, and I want to introduce them to you here at the outset. And the first is Achor. At the very end, you find out that the valley in which Achan is stoned to death, where his family is stoned to death, where his livestock is stoned to death and then burned, that valley is now renamed, and it's a play on words. The man's name is Achan, the valley is renamed Achor. Achor means trouble. This whole passage, the entire chapter, and in fact, you could make the case that this is emblematic of the Hebrew breadth of Scripture, is about this road, this path into trouble. And this is exactly where we find ourselves. There is another word, which we've already encountered, and it comes back at the very end, and that is the word tikva. Tikva is the Hebrew word for hope. This entire passage is about the journey from trouble to hope, and it's the journey all of us are on. So we've got 3 points here. The first is the nature of trouble. The next is the road to trouble. And then finally, we have the door through trouble. Okay, so first, the nature of trouble. One of the really interesting things, just look in verse 1. Just look in verse 1. What does it say? Does it say Achan sinned? Not first, it doesn't. Look what it says there, right at the very, very top of it. It says, but the Israelites were unfaithful. What's up with that? That seems weird. And I'll tell you why it seems weird to us. We are modern Western people. We live in the shadow of the Enlightenment. In the 1800s, there were a bunch of Enlightenment thinkers, Jean Locke and the rest of them, and they said that individual people have worth and value, and therefore we need to treat them as individuals. And that was like good so far as it goes. But the reason why this smacks us in the face is because it looks like Israel is bearing the blame for a single person's sin. But if you're from a traditional culture, or your parents are from a traditional culture, you'll recognize this. It's only modern Western people that see sin in individual terms. Everybody, for all of history, in most cultures, have always known the truth that the Bible is telling us right here is that sin always has collateral damage. There is always a storm cloud attached to it. And that's precisely what you see here. We've got... right at the top of it, we see this like miniature genealogy where we have, here's the tribe, and here's the clan, and here's the family, and it kind of like zooms out to this individual. And it's kind of it's widening the circle. It's like, yeah, this one individual sin ended up impacting these concentric circles of people who he was in community with, right? And then there's something really interesting in the 10th chapter. You see Joshua, and what is he doing? Does he look like a fearless leader who is about to undertake one of the great conquests of ancient times? No. He's on his face. He's groveling. He sounds a lot like Moses, doesn't he? Why did you bring us across the Jordan? No. Their leader has lost his heart because of this man's indiscretion. The people have lost their nerve because of this man's indiscretion. It says here that the elders joined Joshua on their face in front of the ark of the Lord. Everybody in the leadership is undone. And let's not forget, because of this man's sin, there are 36 empty chairs around 36 tables that night. People lost their lives. And then we find out that his wife and his children and his family are all put to death. And you know what? Here's the thing. Like, that sounds really disturbing to our modern ears. And I have to tell you, it's not prescriptive. It's supposed to sound horrific in the text. In Deuteronomy, Israel is barred from punishing a son for the father's sins and a father for the son's sins. In Ezekiel chapter 8, same thing. This is not meant to be prescriptive. This isn't saying that when someone in your church sins, let's just burn their whole family. It's definitely not saying that. It's supposed to be disturbing. That's the point. It's supposed to be disturbing. It's supposed to grab us. Oh my goodness, that is the ramification for this person's indiscretion? Look at the price tag. I mean, it's to our modern ears, it seems odd because like this is a vanquished people. They're not missing their silver and the gold. But this man kept what was devoted. Now, we hear that and we're like, maybe he didn't get the memo. Like, did they post it up in the break room? Everybody in Israel knew. You do not keep devoted things. It is entrenched in their national identity that you do not keep Purim. You can look in Deuteronomy 24, Ezekiel 18. You do not keep what is devoted. Everybody in this room knows you do not threaten the President of the United States. That's a thing Americans know because the SWAT team will show up at your house. Right? This was the same thing. Everybody knew. Everybody knew, and he took it. And as a result of his indiscretion, his nation loses heart. His leadership is on their face. There are 36 empty chairs around 36 tables, and his family bears the penalty. Now, the challenge for us is that we live in a modern individualistic culture, and we see this and we think, wow, that's kind of crazy. I'm sure glad we don't roll like that anymore. The principle is still the same. There is always collateral damage around sin. Sin always leads to trouble. There's always a storm cloud attached to it. And then you say, okay, well, what about the private sins? What about my secret sins? And here's the popular, I guess, cliche about it. Well, nobody got hurt. Right? And I think we'd all agree, crime, sin, where people gets hurt, like murder and robbery and things like that, okay, well, those are clearly condemnable, right? But what about the secret sins? What about stuff where nobody clearly gets hurt? I'm telling you, there is no such thing as a sin that doesn't have collateral damage. There's always a storm cloud attached to it. And it may be realized quickly or much, much later, and it may be something that strikes you in the face as profound, or it may be subtle. But there's always collateral damage with sin, and that's the point here. And so I could use a couple of examples. What about pornography? That's a victimless crime. Everyone's a consenting adult. If you've ever seen an interview with somebody who came out of that industry, you know that it is not a victimless crime. And then the people that, it's basically epidemic at this point. But if you use that, you're gonna bring all kind of dysfunction into your relationships and into your marriage one day. Not a victimless crime. There's collateral damage associated with it. What about your below board business dealings? Somebody is noticing. And they may or may not be a believer, but I promise you this, your indiscretion is changing the culture of the organization where you work. And it might be millimeters at a time, but you are opening a door to darkness. There's always collateral. And maybe it's a little private sin. Nobody sees it. Let me tell you something. Some of you will find this out. You're going to have kids one day, and they see everything. And they are unfortunate little mirrors who just project back on you all of your flaws and shortcomings. The most important things in life are caught and not taught. And your children will notice. They're gonna see your walk. They're gonna see your integrity in the quiet places. There is no such thing as an indiscretion that doesn't have a storm cloud attached to it. All sin leads to trouble. That's the point of the passage. This valley, nobody knows what its name was before that, but to this day, you can Google it. You can go on Google Maps later. You can Google the Valley of Achor, the Valley of Trouble. Every sin begins a path. It's a road, and it leads to trouble. Now, the next thing we've got to pay attention to is the road to trouble, and this is in verse 16. Look there. This is a pattern that we see here. It's repeated elsewhere in Scripture. It'll sound familiar to you. It sounds an awful lot like Adam and Eve's experience in Genesis, but listen to this. It says, no, that's not it. Okay. The road to trouble. This is fascinating. Do you remember the zoom out in the beginning, right? You got a Khan, and here's his clan, and here's his family, here's his clan, and here's his tribe. This is zoom out. Right here in verse 16, it goes in reverse. Robert Alter is a Jewish scholar. He's an expert on Hebrew narrative, and he says this is intentional. In the beginning, we have it kind of zooming out, and you get the concentric circles of the people who are impacted by Achan's sin. You really see the trouble that has resulted from his stealing the harem, right? Here, you have it going in reverse, and as you're reading it, the narrative is supposed to slow down. Like this is where the suspenseful music plays. All right. Early the next morning, Joshua had Israel come forward tribe by tribe, and Judah was chosen. The clans of Judah came forward, and the Zerarites were chosen. He had the clan of the Zerarites come forward by families, and Zimri was chosen. Joshua had his family come forward man by man, and Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zimri, the son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah, was chosen. This is the part where this is the edge of your seat cliffhanger. Oh, they're going to find out. They're going to cast lots. And it starts out, it's this huge zoom out. And it zooms in by tribe, by clan, by family. Imagine this. You go to Google Earth after church today, and let's just say that it's magical for the illustration to work. And you type in, show me the biggest sinner on earth. And, it starts all the way out here, like from space. And it zooms in on the west coast of the United States. And then it zooms in on California. And it zooms in on the Bay Area. And then it zooms in on San Jose. And then it zooms in on Crossroads. And there it is, a live view of you. Just like that. That's what this is. It's zooming in, it's zooming in, it's zooming in. And there he is, Achan, and he is. Well, and what happens? What's his response? I mean, it's really interesting that Joshua says, my son, what did you do? It's not like, you idiot, what? That's what I would have said. But it's with compassion. That's worth noting. This is a leader who has compassion for someone who's made a terrible mistake. And what's interesting is Achan is aware. He's like, I did it. And then he gives us something that is, it shows us the path to trouble. It says in verse 21, when I saw in the plunder a beautiful robe from the Babylonia, 200 shekels of silver and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. They're hidden in the ground inside my tent. 4 things happen, and they're the 4 things that happen to all of us. And you can go all the way back to Genesis, and you can see the pattern in the Garden of Eden, but this is what happens. He saw, he coveted, he took, and he hid. This is what we do. We see something, and then we covet it, and then we take it, and then we hide. Why? Because we're embarrassed. Somebody asked me once, Pastor, where does it start becoming sin? Is it the taking? Is it between take and hide? It's actually between saw and covet. This is where it becomes a sin. Now, coveting is a word that we only hear in church, and it's kind of a little hard to wrap your mind around. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on this, because I need everybody to understand what this means. In Colossians chapter 5, you have chapter 3, verse 5. Colossians chapter 3, verse 5. It's not in your notes. You got to write it down. We give you a pen. All right? It says this, put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. The word there that is translated as evil desires is a very interesting meaning. It's the Greek word epithymia. And to put epi, the prefix before epi, means just like, it means hyper. It means something that's above and beyond, right? And thymia is a word that means desire. So what this word that is being translated, and you see it, sinful desires, usually that's how it gets translated in Colossians and Romans. This is a very Pauline term. Epithymia, it means a disordered love. That's what it means. Timothy Keller, in his book, The Prodigal God, he writes about it. He uses a great example, and I'm going to borrow it. He says this. He says, sinful desires aren't necessarily desires for things that you would consider sinful. These aren't necessarily like, rampant promiscuous sex or hard drugs or something like that. Usually, sinful desires are good things that we have turned into ultimate things. Their desires, and their desires, I'll tell you mine. You want to know the things that compete for primacy in my heart? You want to know the things that compete, right? I'll tell you. You're not telling me yours, but I'm going to tell you mine. My kids and my wife, my family, they're good things. But I have to work very hard to make sure that they do not occupy the throne of my life. Because the reality is this, is that you can make a person your sinful desire. You can make a relationship, you can make children, parents, you can make a relationship your hyper desire, and 2 things will happen. At least 2 things. Number 1, you are going to put so much pressure on that person. Let's just say hypothetically, and we're here in the Bay Area. There's a lot of competition happening. I see this on the wrestling mats all the time, right? You have parents who are living vicariously through their kids, and if the kids aren't successful, there's no way that the parent can be happy or feel like they're succeeding in life. What happens is you're loving that kid too much. It has become a sinful desire. It's an over love. It's an over desire for that kid's happiness, success, your own affirmation as a result of those things. What happens is you crush your kid because no one can live under that expectation, right? And you're inevitably going to be disappointed. Because if you put your faith in anything that is human or temporal, you will be let down. If it is a relationship, if it is a job, if it is an individual, those are all very frail and very temporary. These epi-desire, and this is the one from The Prodigal God. I'll give you the metric. This is how you diagnose yourself. If you say, I will follow you, Jesus, if she falls in love with me. I will follow you, Jesus, if he asks me to marry him. I will follow you, Jesus, if I get the job. I will follow you, Jesus, if I get the scholarship. I will follow you, Jesus, if we get the house. I will follow you, Jesus, if it goes into remission. Whatever you put after the if, is your real God. That's what you're actually worshiping. If your love for God is conditioned by his, delivering certain goods and services, that's not actually love. That's a utilitarian relationship. And this is something quite different. That is the essence of a sinful desire. And this is what, so between saw and covet, and I want to make this point, the sin happens between saw and covet. And here's a great little pastor-ism that I heard 20 years ago, and I'm going to pass on. I hope one of you remembers this. Just because a bird flies through your hair doesn't mean you need to let it make a nest there. Okay? It stayed. I hope it stays for you. The sin is between saw and covet. You can repent at any time. Maybe your saw went from just, I noticed the thing, to you saying, I got to have it. I'm adding that as a component and a requirement for my ultimate happiness. And if I don't get the job, if I don't get the career, if I don't get the guy, if I don't get the girl, if I don't get the house, if I don't get the car, I cannot thrive. I cannot be happy. You know what you're doing? You're basically saying, if I don't get those, I'm not okay. Those are my salvation. You can't thrive, you can't be happy, you can't be content without them. It's what the Bible calls a sinful desire and over-desire. Now, we find out that, and I love this, when Joshua throws himself on the ground in front of the ark, and he goes before God, he's like, how are we ever going to do this? And he's throwing himself a little pity party. What does God say? Get up. I love that. I love that. I'll probably get less appointments as a result of this confession, but I'm going to tell you something. A lot of times if I have someone sitting in my office and they're like, Pastor, you don't know, I've had this besetting sin for so long, and pick whichever one you're imagining it is. You know what I'll say? Stop. That's my spiritual advice. Now you don't have to call me. Get up. There is a time to pray. There's a time to come to God and to ask for strength. And there's also a time to get up. There's a time to just stop. You want to master something? Give it up. That's the only way you master it. All right. Now, we find out that at the end of the story, we get this really disturbing vision, this picture, his family being drug off, being stoned to death. Achan is killed, his wife, his children are killed, his livestock, all his possessions totally burned. It's interesting to note that Israel doesn't profit from the sin either. Everything's destroyed. And that valley is renamed the Kor, the Valley of Trouble. If the story ended here, it would be like the saddest story in all of the Bible. But it doesn't. There's another word. You remember from the top of the sermon? Centuries later, there would be a prophet by the name of Hosea. And if you don't know anything about Hosea, it's a short book. He's a minor prophet. It's at the end of the Hebrew Scriptures. And the prophecy goes something like this. Hosea is married to a promiscuous woman. His wife sleeps around. And at one point in the narrative, and it's a bit poetic, she is actually, she's being sold on an auction block as a slave, presumably naked. Can you imagine the embarrassment? Put yourself there psychologically for a second. You have a promiscuous wife, and she has slept around a lot, and now she is being auctioned as a slave. That's the picture. The picture isn't actually about Hosea and his promiscuous wife. It's about God, and it's about Israel. And in the metric, God is the faithful husband and Israel is the promiscuous wife. And do you know what the whole prophecy in Hosea seems to lean towards? He talks about the day of the Lord, where all of a sudden Hosea is going to woo his wife and he's going to lure her and he's going to make her whole again. And this is what it says in Hosea 2:15. It says, "There I will give her back her vineyards, and I will make the valley of Achor the door of hope." This is about the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord is the day when Jesus sets all things right. Apparently, there is a valley of trouble, and it's a valley all of us end up in. And then we find out that there is actually, at the other end of this valley gets renamed again, and it is a door of hope. Hebrews Let me help you everybody connect this real quick. Hebrews 13, 11 through 14 says this. The high priest carries the blood of animals into the most holy place as a sin offering, but the bodies are burned outside the camp. And so Jesus also suffered outside the city gates to make the people holy through his own blood. Let us then go to him outside the camp, bearing the disgrace he bore, for here we do not have an enduring city, but we are looking for the city that is to come. There is Achor, and that means trouble, and there is hope. And there is the distance in between those, and that is the path that every single person who's ever been born finds yourself on. The thing that connects the two, tikva. Do you remember the word? Tikva. It means hope. When they placed, the other way tikva is translated is cord. And when they tell Rahab, you're going to put a scarlet cord above your window, and that's going to be a sign that the contents of that household, the people who reside there, will not be destroyed. That is the word tikva. Why? Cord and hope are the same word. Because if you fall down a hole or you're in a deep valley and you need to get out, somebody throws you a cord. That rope is Jesus. He is the scarlet cord that's gone all the way from Genesis to Revelation. And that's why it says in 2 Corinthians 5:21, he who knew no sin became sin, so that through him we might become the righteousness of God. Do you see the parallels? I just want to point this out. Achan sins. And as a result of that sin, there's 36 empty chairs around 36 tables, and his family is put to death. Not as an example or a prescription, but something that should horrify us 100%. But do you see what it's done? It's shown a proof of concept. That the guilt of a nation could be assuaged by a single person being punished. Do you see what happened? Now, if you're skeptical, I want to take just a second and address that. I want you to see what he doesn't say. God doesn't tell Israel, okay, well, here's what you do. You need to work harder. He doesn't tell them, buck up, try more. There has to be a sacrifice. There has to be payment for sin. But when you realize that Jesus has made that payment, that's how you leave the valley of Achor and you enter through the door of Tikvah. Everybody here's life is a valley of trouble, and there is a path to the door of hope, and Jesus is that path. This concludes the teaching of God's word.